It's 10 in the morning. You haven't finished your coffee. You haven't replied to the emails that came in. The chair in your cubicle is cold. They're already here. You've worked with every single one of these coworker types, and based on the data, one of them is you, the suck-up. For them, the boss is always right. Suck-ups are the employees who have made agreeing with the boss into a habit. Every idea the manager has strikes them as a stroke of genius. They laugh at every joke. Every negative decision is met with a nod, as if they were witnessing history. They don't agree because they believe in the strategy. They agree because they've done the math. And the math says the person who signs the performance reviews is always right. Suck-ups rarely get promoted for the work. They get promoted for being in the office, for standing next to the work and nodding at it. The only risk in working with them is this: nodding is contagious. While you're doing your job and they're praising the boss, you look up one day and the wrong person is sitting at the promotion table. Real value doesn't come from nodding, but nobody has the courage to remind the boss of that. The credit thief. Next, let's move on to the type who plays this same position better, and in a quieter role. Credit thieves have one talent. That talent is entirely timing. They stay quiet while the hard part is being done. The spreadsheet that broke you after 20-hour nights. All of a sudden, it's called teamwork. And that team is one single person, not you. The credit thief is most visible in meetings. That's where they summarize your work for the group. With calm confidence, they own the process. The move that delights them most is the forwarded email. They take your message, the one where you did all the thinking. They add a single word on top, thoughts, and pass it up the chain. And just like that, their name lives on in the boss's inbox too. By the time you catch on, the praise is over. The decision has been made, and your name was never mentioned once. Your only defense against the credit thief is making your work visible. If you work quietly and wait to be appreciated, they won't wait. While you're being modest, they're signing your work with their own name. Brutal but true. The work you do counts as half finished if nobody knows you did it. The always busy employee, forever tired, forever wrestling with something, but it's never clear what they've finished. I don't know about their daily life, but in office life, this is the person who's drowning. The always busy are permanently drained. Corporate companies ought to be aware of this. They walk fast to wherever they're going. They sigh before they sit down. They answer a message that comes in at 11 at night. For the always busy employee, the work they do sits at the center of their life. When you ask them a question, the answer we hear is, "I'm up to my neck in work." And yet if you look at what actually got finished this week, the list is surprisingly short. For them, busyness has become the work culture. Actual output is just a rumor. They've mastered the appearance of effort. Effort itself has become optional. The crazy part is that they believe it. In their head, they're the hardest working person in the building, and honestly, there's nobody around to say otherwise. The office gossip. Now, let's talk about the person who is guaranteed to know something about everyone. The office gossip will tell you that we all need to hear what they have to say. They won't start talking before brewing themselves a coffee. This employee is the company's fastest communication network. But they always stay off the record. Who's leaving? Who's fighting? Who's been up to something behind the scenes? Whose salary barely stretches? They know everything. They tell you what they've heard as if they're doing you a favor. The trap here is listening to them. Not listening is a big favor you can do yourself. Because next to some other desk, a version of this same conversation is most likely being had about you, the micromanager. And now, let's come to the employee who can't leave anything to anyone else. Micromanagers are the type who ask for a status report on a task they assigned 5 minutes ago. Then, when the report takes a while, they set up a meeting to discuss why the report is taking so long. They don't want the work to get done. Strangely, they want to watch the work being done. That's the kind of odd habit they have. Send them a document, and it comes back with the font questioned. Give them a plan, and they rebuild it as the exact same draft, except now it's theirs. And they claim it immediately, too. From a distance, it looks like they really care about quality. Up close, you realize it's something quieter and sadder, coming from a need for control. They can't believe anything will be done right unless they're personally hovering over it. After a while of working with them, you stop making decisions. You just do what you're told, and in time, you get used to it. Getting you, and everyone around you, quietly used to giving up on trying. The ghost? Now we've come to the exact opposite. You've heard that ghost people exist on the team. Their name is on the team chart. There's a chair with a jacket hanging on it. But nobody sees where they are. Nobody knows. Ghosts have embraced the art of technically appearing to work while never being around. Their status is always stable, but they're never where they're needed. They answer messages slowly enough to look busy, but fast enough to prove they're alive. That is the trait that makes them recognizable. The most impressive part is that nothing seems to fall apart in their absence. That's the uncomfortable thing everyone thinks and nobody shouts out loud. And ghosts have quietly built an entire career on the fact that nobody has ever found the courage to check. The Oversharer. Speaking of things people say out loud, let's talk about the person who says everything. Oversharers give more detail than necessary. At a certain point, you get worn out just listening. You start avoiding conversations with them. Ask them one day how their weekend went, and they'll poison the next 30 minutes of your life. Ask them about anything, and they act like a guide, as if they're an expert on it. Tell them a dream, and they'll go through every possible meaning. And the hard part is, most of the time they're warm, they're genuinely good people, and asking them to stop sometimes makes you feel like you're being cruel. They talk about so much that by now you know more about their family situation than you know about your own cousins. And slowly, gently, you start planning your escape route toward the kitchen. The veteran. Now, the person who has been here forever and learned almost nothing. Veterans work at the company for years, but still as if they were new. Usually, right before doing something that gives the impression it's their first week, they remember how things used to be done. Back in the old days, before all these changes, nobody asked for. They resist every new system on principle. They don't fully use the new system, but they argue that this is the system's fault. They always pass the ball to someone else. That's their way of slipping out of the work. They keep a printed copy of things that are perfectly fine online. And every once in a while, they drop a piece of information about the company that turns out to be genuinely important. That's what makes them valuable. Something nobody wrote down. Something that would have been lost forever if they hadn't been standing right there remembering it. What veterans have isn't exactly skill, it's endurance. They've survived 4 managers, 3 restructurings, and 1 rebrand. So much so that they're now too embedded to be removed, and too familiar to be questioned. They are a landmark, not because of what they do, but because at this point, the building would feel wrong without them standing there complaining too. The true friend. We've come to the person who is genuinely loved and genuinely awaited. True friends are the ones who look out for you and protect you in the middle of every undertaking, against all odds. They're the one who stands up for you. When something lands on you, they come running to your rescue with everything they've got. And for your own good, they're not afraid to point out your flaws. Gently. The true friend is the person who makes a terrible job bearable, the person who turns the day a report is due from something you endure into something almost good. And here's the quiet truth. Nobody puts on a resume. The true friend is often the only reason people stay in jobs they should have left long ago. Not the salary, not the title, definitely not the promotion. It's the people at the desk beside you who make the whole thing feel less lonely. You don't realize how much weight they were carrying until the day they leave. And then, all at once, you realize it. The backbone. And finally, we come to the person who keeps everything running and takes credit for nothing. The backbone has a small title, an even smaller salary, and yet somehow, they're the only one who knows how anything actually works. Bosses come and go, strategies change, the logo gets redesigned one more time, but the backbone stays, quietly holding the whole plan together, its workings, its outline, and a to-do list nobody else can read. The company isn't even aware of how dependent its operation is on this person. It only learns the hard way. The day that person gets tired of solving everyone's problems and starts working somewhere, they'll actually feel valued. And that's the day everyone realizes the same truth. The most important person in a company is not always the one with the biggest title. So what does recognizing all of this get you? It's actually very simple. Surviving in an office comes less from doing your job well than from reading these types correctly. Once you understand why the suck-up always gets promoted, why the ghost never gets caught, why the backbone never gets noticed, you understand the game too. You can't change them, but at least now you know who's who. And sometimes that's all you need. So, 10 types. And if you made it all the way to the end quietly certain that you're none of them, that's usually the clearest sign that you're at least one of them. There's also always one type we skip. You already know which one. Which type have you seen, or which one are you? Go on, write it below. Everyone's waiting for it. Share it in the comments. Let's take this conversation further. And if your office runs on exactly these 10 people, then you'll feel right at home here, because there's more where this came from.